from 2008 till 2012, Spain played in 3 major international tournaments, 2 UEFA Euros and 1 FIFA World Cup, and they won every single one of them. Of course, the Barca trio in midfield of Xavi, Iniesta and Busquets played a major part, but you cannot win these tournaments without someone putting the ball in the back of the net. That's where Fernando Torres and David Villa used to come in. David Villa combined scored 9 goals in the Euro 2008 and the World Cup 2010, whereas Fernando Torres scored the winner in the final of Euro 2008 and a brace in the final of Euro 2012. So yeah, these two were pretty good. So welcome to UW Football, and today we will be talking about who was better, Fernando Torres or David Villa. If you ask Barcelona or Valencia fans, they would say it was David Villa. Liverpool and Atletico fans would say it was Fernando Torres. La Liga fans would say Villa. Premier League fans would probably say it was Fernando Torres. So instead of going back and forth, we'll dive in deep and find the answer. I'll divide this video into 3 parts. Pre-2007, before they were world-renowned superstars, from 2007 till 2011 when they dominated world football, and then their latter career. I'll look at their career in numbers here, and then I'll discuss their style of play and their impact on the game. David Villa came to the ranks at Sporting de Gijón, and after he had scored 38 goals in the Segunda Division, the newly promoted Real Zaragoza signed David Villa for €3 million to spearhead their attack upon their return to La Liga. Now, considering the fact that Zaragoza was a newly promoted side, David Villa's 17-goal league season is more impressive than you would think. And on top of that, Zaragoza went on to play in the Copa del Rey final, a final in which David Villa scored as Zaragoza overcame Real Madrid. His second season with Zaragoza was more or less the same, but this time around there was no cup triumph at the end of it. But once again, his 18 goals in all competition is still pretty good, so it came as no surprise to anyone that Spanish giants were circling around David Villa. And David Villa opted to join Valencia, who had fallen slightly off after winning the league just 2 years prior. With better teammates at Valencia, David Villa went into a completely new gear as he scored 25 goals as Valencia finished 3rd and qualified for the UEFA Champions League. The 2006-07 season saw a slight dip. David Villa managed to score 16, but Valencia once again got the top 4. Now let's talk about Fernando Torres pre-2007. Just like David Villa, Fernando Torres had his start in the Segunda Division with Atlético Madrid. Atletico might be a giant of Spanish football right now, but they had their rough patch in the early 2000s. Anyways, back to Fernando Torres. Unlike David Villa, Torres was not scoring for fun in the Segunda Division. A year and a half, and Torres only scored 7 goals. But let's also consider a fact that Torres was 18 in his second season, whereas David Villa was 20. After Atletico Madrid gained promotion to La Liga, Torres' 13 goals helped them finish in a respectable 12th position. Torres then continued to lead the line for Atletico Madrid by scoring 19 the following season, a season that also saw him make his debut for the Spanish national team at the young age of 19. Torres soon became a regular in the Spanish setup. He scored 7 goals in the 2006 World Cup qualifiers. 2006 World Cup was a tournament we first got a taste of Fernando Torres and David Villa at a major international tournament, as they both finished with 3 goals apiece. Now back with Atletico Madrid. Torres kept on flourishing. He scored 62 La Liga goals between 2003 till 2007, and because he was a pacey forward, he was constantly attracting interest from the Premier League. First with Chelsea, whose owner Roman Abramovich was a massive fan, and then later with Newcastle United, who were looking to replace Michael Owen, who had failed miserably. In the end, indeed, it was a Premier League club that got him out of Atletico Madrid, as Liverpool paid £20 million plus Luis Garcia for the services of Fernando Torres. So pre-2007, David Villa was a better goal scorer. That was roughly because he was playing in a much better team. Torres was the one who was turning more heads. His sudden burst of pace combined with his world-class finishing is why Premier League clubs were snooping around him. Now let's look at David Villa and Fernando Torres in their prime. In the 2007-08 season, David Villa scored 18 goals in La Liga. This saw him get called up to the Spanish squad of Euro 2008, a tournament in which he proceeded to score 4 goals as Spain won the competition. His performances that season put him amongst the elites, so it came as no surprise that Real Madrid wanted to bring David Villa in. But surprisingly, David Villa did not move. Instead, he stayed at Valencia and scored 28 goals in the league alone. It was clear for everyone to see. David Villa had become way too good for Valencia. He was putting in numbers you'd see a striker put in playing at a side dominating world football like a PSG or Bayern right now. David Villa was doing this at a club challenging for Champions League position. In 2009, after the Confederations Cup, Real Madrid, Barcelona, Liverpool, Chelsea, Manchester United, basically all the big clubs were fighting to bring him over, but David Villa once again proved to be too loyal. He said that he has a contract with Valencia and he wants to honor it. David Villa continued where he left off. He finished the year 2009 with 43 goals in 54 games. This tally was higher than anyone else's. That year also saw David Villa getting shortlisted for Ballon d'Or for a second year in a row. The 2009-10 season, however, finished in unusual fashion for David Villa. He did not play the last 2 games and he also had a goal drought, which was unusual for him. Later we found out what the problem was. On 19th May, Barcelona signed David Villa for just 40 million euros. Now transfer fees weren't that high during that time, but a player of David Villa's quality should cost you at least 65 million even in that market. The next 12 months were very special for David Villa. He went to South Africa with Spain. He scored 5 goals, highest in the tournament, as Spain won the FIFA World Cup. He then started his life at Barcelona. He scored 23 goals in his first season, won La Liga, his first league title, and the UEFA Champions League, a final in which he scored in. His trophy cabinet was finally representing the caliber of player David Villa was. Now, let's talk about Fernando Torres. He had a blistering start at Liverpool. He came over to England and scored 33 times in 46 games. He then went on to play in the Euro 2008, a tournament whose final Fernando Torres scored in. With performances like these, many were questioning where does Fernando Torres rank among the world's best. The answer was third. Torres in the year 2008 came third in the race of FIFA Ballon d'Or, finishing behind Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo. Those two were the only players better than Fernando Torres during that time. Now let's go back to August of 2008. When Torres came back from the Euros, that's when we first started noticing his injury problems. In the 2008-09 season, he missed 14 league games, but whenever he played, he scored. 14 and 24 as Liverpool finished second behind Manchester United. Now many believe Liverpool's shortcomings that season were draws, and a player like Fernando Torres would have fixed those problems. The 2009-10 season saw Fernando Torres once again miss 16 games due to injury, but once again, whenever he was available, he was scoring. 18 and 22 Premier League games. Now let's also consider a fact in that summer, Liverpool lost Xabi Alonso and Javier Mascherano and they finished 7th, but these factors were not a problem for Fernando Torres. That's how good he was. The opposition did not matter to him. Whether it was Man United or Chelsea, Torres would pop up and score against them. The 2010 World Cup is where we first saw glimpses of Fernando Torres' decline. He rushed himself back just so he could make the World Cup squad, and then he proceeded not to register a single goal in that tournament. He looked to have lost his pace, and without it, Torres just was not effective. In reality, 2010 is when Fernando Torres' prime actually ended, but for the sake of this video, we'll also look into the 2010-11 season. Roy Hodgson came in as Rafael Benitez was now gone. Torres registered 9 goals in the first half of the league. It's not bad, but that's not Fernando Torres' numbers. His only top moment that season came when he ripped Chelsea apart. So as a result, Chelsea bought him. 5 years after showing interest in Fernando Torres, Roman Abramovich finally got his man. Chelsea broke the British record fee as they paid £50 million to bring Fernando Torres over. The next 6 months were slightly underwhelming. Torres managed to score only once in the 14 Premier League games he played for Chelsea that season. So who was better in their prime? Well, Torres in his prime was not only hugely talented, but he was physically unstoppable. Defenders could not cope up with his pace, and on top of that, Torres also had a great knack of producing key goals in key matches. Against Manchester United, he would score. Against Chelsea, he would score. Against Arsenal, he would score. Against Inter in the Champions League, he would score. In the Euro 2008 final, he would score. Whenever Torres played during 2007 till late 2009, you could not stop him. His change of pace was something that the defense just could not deal with, and his shooting was so accurate that the keepers would have troubles getting anywhere near it. David Villa, however, was very different. Unlike Torres, his physical attribute was not that made him special. Technically, he was far superior to Fernando Torres. Both his touch and his finishing was better than Fernando Torres, and also he worked way more harder than Fernando Torres. Post 2011 is not even a comparison. Torres played for Chelsea for 3 more seasons. Wasn't a regular scorer, but like always, he did have his moments. He scored an iconic goal against Barca that is still talked about to this very day, and also scored in the Europa League final, a final that Chelsea won. Adding to the Europa League, Torres also won the Champions League and FA Cup with Chelsea a year before. Post Chelsea, he had a disappointing 6 months at AC Milan, but the 18 months that followed after were pretty good. Torres went back to Atlético Madrid. He did not refine himself, but he did well playing second fiddle to Antoine Griezmann. In the 2015-16 season, Torres hit double figures in the league for the first time in 5 years. That season, he played in yet another Champions League final. Unfortunately for him, he lost this one. 2 more years at Atlético Madrid were followed by an unsuccessful move to Sagan Tosu. David Villa post 2011 was still bossing it. He injured his ankle in 2012, that's why he missed 2012 Euros, and that injury subsequently hindered his performance the season after that. Barcelona then sold him for €5 million to Atlético Madrid. What an utter disgrace! David Villa netted 13 times in his only season at Atlético Madrid, a season in which he won yet another La Liga title and featured in his second Champions League final. Sadly for him, he lost this one. After this, David Villa signed with New York City FC, but since NYCFC were not going to come into existence till January of next year, he stopped over in Australia where he scored twice in 4 games there. In the next 4 years at NYFC, David Villa scored 77 goals in Major League Soccer, and he is in contention to be one of the best players to have ever played in Major League Soccer history. David Villa still had it in his late 30s. He had one last stop in Japan where he scored 13 goals, hence making David Villa one of only 3 players to have scored in 6 different continents. So who was better? In terms of big game performances and moments, it was Fernando Torres, but that doesn't necessarily make him a better player. David Villa, in my opinion, was a far superior striker. He did it longer, he was more consistent, and he was not injury prone. David Villa performed at every single level that he was tested at, and unlike Torres, David Villa performed at different styles of football. So yeah, this was a video on who was better, Fernando Torres or David Villa. I said it was David Villa. If you agreed, then tell me down in the comments. Subscribe, have a good day, and I will see you soon.